Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and today it's absolutely not a bloody wonderful world you may be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. I know many of you will probably want to avoid most post-game shows today, and some of you will be listening on replay. Either way, it doesn't change the result or the performance. Let's get real.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Where do we begin? Probably many people making, I was going to say a cup of tea, but they're probably having a drink, probably gone to the loo. And here we are. And thank you, Mr. Albert JTV, for coming on with me to be my wingman today. I think I need somebody to give me a little bit of a, like when you're in a bar fight, don't hold me back, don't hold me back.
Is that what it feels like? Jesus, man. We spoke briefly just before we came live. I'm just tired, man, of this team sometimes, man. There's no excuses. There's no excuses. There isn't.
Hi, Tammy. Hi to our chief like officer. If you fancy hitting the like button, there's probably nothing you want to like today, but if you do, please do hit it. Welcome at ease, everyone at ease. We'll welcome a few people. Mohammed's in the house. Hello. Andy's here. I'm worried we'll struggle to win another game. Not sure I'll go that far. Nordenhoff, don't forget to blame Dan Potts for being negative. Listen, you think that we lost? I detect sarcasm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take it as sarcasm because surely nobody thinks that we lost to West Ham because Dan Potts is negative. Harvey has it right. What a load of rubbish. It's me, Everest. They couldn't even climb the little hill down my street. And today it felt like they were trying to climb Everest. Cheer up. You know what? I will, because I'm not going to let this ruin my weekend. No. I have a busy weekend. I've got lots of happy things that I'm doing. Big car show with Tony tomorrow for her endeavors. So yes, welcome, Albert. Well, that sucks, says Hannah. Sure. Saul says, our season is done. Time to decompress, enjoy the rest of the season for what it is and prepare for the next. When we weren't serious this season, summer and January showed me. I'll get a few more of your comments up before we get stuck in. I've never paid as much as I have to go to home games this season. A friend of mine, I'm in a WhatsApp group, I've told you, with a group of Arsenal women, took the train from Doncaster to go to today's game.
Good Lord.
And
I don't know how far that is as well.
Spent the money, to follow her team. And, I don't mind losing. And I say that loosely. If you lose with honor, okay, if you lose with pride, I don't have a problem with that as a fan. But today was toothless, spineless. They couldn't find a pass or any creativity with an old map and a compass. If I gave them a GPS system, they wouldn't have been able to even locate where the goal is. And I know we have injuries. I know we don't have a forward, but I'm sorry. There are no excuses when you get on a pitch and you're playing a team. This is the first time they haven't conceded a goal under Graham Potter. This is the same team, cut and paste from last season at the Emirates, 2-0.
Yep.
And our fans today, you could feel it. It was flat. The stadium is not the same as it has been the last 2 seasons. It's just all off. It's been a horrible. Mikel wants to talk about the journey all the time. And at some point, you have to reach the destination. But the journey this season has been nothing but hellacious. And it gets to a certain point where you can't blame the refs. You can't blame VAR. You can't blame the injuries. Our team is better than West Ham. They put in an effort today. And you know what? Credit to West Ham, who, by the way, had Mavropanos in defense. Think about that. The Mikel Merino experiment up front did not work. We all pushed for it. Let's not sit here and lie. Roll the Merino dice. Why not? But it just didn't work. But he didn't change that. Use him as a super sub. Maybe, Mikel gets stuck into these things that work, and then he just keeps rolling the dice with that. And today, I think that he had to do that. But I cannot sit here and sugarcoat this and try and make any excuses for the team today or the manager today. That was an absolutely abysmal performance by professional footballers at home against a London rival who has been garbage this season and battling relegation. Albert.
Well, how do I talk off the back of that? I'll try my best. I just put it in the chat, Sophie. It's a very common saying we always hear. What's it again? Fail to prepare, prepared to fail. It sums up Arsenal this season. It sums up the summer window. It sums up the January transfer window. Going into the game today, I was asked score predictions. I had to think long and hard 2 days ago, and I begrudgingly said Arsenal will win 2-1. It won't be a pretty game. But what I saw in the first half, and I've used the term quite a few times this season, is copy, paste, repeat with Arsenal. I've been fortunate enough to go to the games this season, some of the games this season. And so if there were particular games this season, and I'm watching Arsenal play, I almost felt like I should have bought some board games with me just to keep me entertained, because it's been Ipswich at home, Tottenham at home, Everton at home. I think that day we played Everton at home. I think Liverpool drew. I think they drew at home to Fulham, if I've got that correct. Tell me in the chat if I'm wrong. Liverpool have not gone on a 20-game winning streak, by the way, this season, unless I've got my maths wrong. They have given us ample opportunities this season to close the gap time after time after time again, and they have failed to do it. Before injuries, with injuries, makeshift number 9s. We're not playing against a West Ham side, by the way. No disrespect, because they've got some good players there that are pulling up trees. They're not. They don't have a good record at the Emirates. Yet that first half is indicative of what I've seen in the first half this season. I mean, one shot on target. Anyone that watched that game today, even if you haven't watched it and watch the highlights or whatever, watch the game back if you can find yourself doing that. But when did Arsenal create an opportunity in that game today that wasn't a cross or a corner? That's completely unacceptable. You can talk about injuries as much as you want. We had Waneri playing today. We had Erdegaard playing today. I know people have gone off on the chat on him again. Another. He played better, Erdegaard, in his comeback performance against Chelsea than what I've seen him play this season. And I think I'm being polite by saying that, because there's a lot of Arsenal fans that I do know that are kind of, he shouldn't be the captain, or he's been subpar in his performances. I can't disagree with particularly the latter, to be honest with you, because I'm watching Arsenal play. Sophie, I agree with you. We had a quick chat exchange during the game. Trossard would have played at the false 9. I wouldn't even. People can argue start Moreno, but I think Mikel seduced with his physicality and getting some Havertz not being there. I probably wouldn't even have started him, to be honest with you.
Mikel is obsessed with winning duels and physicality. And this season, it has cost the team. It has cost the team. He's obsessed with it. And possession-based football, come on. Seriously, what is this about? Try and win the game. I was talking to Shaka Hislop the other day. I think you heard the show where I was talking to him about passing out the back, possession-based, and asked him if Mikel has a plan B. And he couldn't really offer a thought of and to Shaka, where he's he couldn't think of a game where he's changed the game. Now today, he had to throw the dice, right? I put on Twitter, call me crazy, but I'd throw Zinchenko into midfield.
Yeah.
Right? he had to roll the dice because he's been forced to. But did the system change, Albert? You tell me. You're a lot better at tactics than I am.
I think it's being polite, Sophie, to be honest with you. But
you are.
I mean, the short answer to that is when I look at coaches in football, I don't care whether you're experienced or you're up and coming, there has to be an ability to be adaptable and to be flexible. We have not had that this season whatsoever at any point of the season. If you honestly think I'm talking crazy, we can have that conversation today. Actually, not today, but maybe tomorrow. Give me a break. But I just watching us. Sophie, I said this on your channel before when I came on. I think it might have been after the Brighton game, where it was furious. I'm bored of watching this team. Whether I'm at the games, whether I'm watching it on TV, I'm going to games, and I'm quite empathetic. Really, I'm like, as long as we win the game, that's the most important thing, because I know the football's not going to be great, irrespective of the personnel. There is no plan B, Sophie. And I think that's been the case not just this season. I think it may be in a little bit last season. There's been slight tweaks with certain games, i.e., for example, the North London derby away this season. That's because we had certain personnel weren't playing. But if you're looking at other games this season, I'm really, really struggling and scratching my head. I mean, one shot on target in the first half, man. One. I don't care if West Ham are playing a back six. That's not acceptable in a game where you know if you win the game, you close the gap by 5 points. Apply the pressure, because the reality is Liverpool have not got a walkover game tomorrow. But again, when it comes to crunch, and this is a systemic thing with Arsenal, by the way. Let me be very clear. I'm not talking about just today. When the pressure is really put on Arsenal, we fold like a deck of cards.
A cheap lawn chair.
Yeah, and I'm sick of it. I mean, so if we pod together, I've been on other channels, and you get people in the chat that get irate. What you're talking about? We're second. We're still in the Champions League. Go and rewatch that performance today. Go and rewatch the performance against Newcastle away. Go and rewatch the performance against Brighton away, and come back and tell me why I should be positive about what I'm seeing with this team. It's total bollocks.
I don't remember one ball going through the middle today. That cutting pass through the middle. And the problem is that we have gotten so used to playing through Saka, okay, for the last 2 seasons, that the adaptability, people want to laugh about Man United and Amorim, and we'll all have a laugh at Man United and Amorim. That's not our problem. And talking about him, why doesn't he change it? Why doesn't he adapt? When you're so embedded in something, right? Maybe as a manager, you actually don't have the tools in your toolbox to be adaptable. And we've played through Saka so much and been so reliant on him that maybe Mikel doesn't drill it in to them in training. It's not part of what they do week in, week out. But that killer ball that Partey even used to pass, or Odegaard sometimes, even playing through Saka, that ball, and you said it, everything, it's like Piccadilly Circus on the flanks, on the left and the right for us. And it's pound the ball in, pound the ball in.
I mean, so
now you're relying on a number 9 who isn't a number 9, who hasn't been a number 9 since he was 9 years old, and in expecting it to work in every game. That's the issue. I don't have the issue with playing Mikel Merino up front. Like I said, let's roll that dice again. But now that didn't work. And would it have worked to play Sterling, who's been awful, right? But systematically, would it have behooved to start with him? You know,
so, yeah.
I don't know. But all I know is that we've reaped what we've sowed in how we've played and relied on Saka.
And to come back, like, even just let me. I'm going to try and go back to basics if I can before I lose my head. Even some of the basics. Are we scared? Are we afraid? As someone told the players, you are not allowed to shoot from 18 to 25 yards. I cannot understand why nobody can pull the trigger. Big up James in the chat. That's the first thing. Mohamed Kudus today, outstanding, Sophie.
He was great.
Outstanding.
By the way, credit to West Ham. They totally deserved to win the game. They were excellent today.
They were excellent. Kudus, that is the kind of wing play, hold up play you want. And another thing that's an issue with Arsenal, I've said this for 2 seasons now, there is not enough pace in this side. And it's killing us in the transition. And movement as well. Look, for example, with Mikel Moreno today. Now, if you're going to play him, he doesn't have, even with Havertz a little bit, to be fair, he's been shoehorned in there. We bought him, and we didn't buy him to play him as a striker. He's learning on the job in terms of that position. And obviously, you play Moreno today. If as a striker, you don't have the natural instincts or to make runs or to be in certain positions as a striker. Hence the reason why I was listening to the commentary that I listened to the game. I listened to the game today. I don't know who was talking. I can't remember who it was, but he's saying, look, he's doing too much outside the box. But I think to myself, well, his natural thing is to do that anyway because he's a midfield player. He's not a striker. He's not going to make them instinctive runs. He's not going to be in the right spots at the right time. There were a couple of occasions today, but and another thing as well. And you mentioned Sterling, and forget whether you like him as a player or not. One of Arsenal's biggest problems, maybe for a few seasons, but definitely this season, we don't have enough players, and it comes back to the pace thing. We don't stretch teams further up. We don't have people that run in behind. That's why Watkins would have been a good signing. Irrespective of how Arsenal balls it up in terms of the 12th hour going in for him, we don't have players that run in behind. If you look, that we miss Saka, obviously, we do miss him because that's the kind of performance you saw from Kudus. What you got to say, that's what we don't have in our side. There's a lot of issues in our side, which we'll talk about more, Sophie. But I'm just tired of some of the basics, man. Have a shot at goal. Someone take a bit more ownership.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Take a bit more ownership. Shoot outside the box. We don't score bangers. We don't even score like deflected. We scored what? Deflected goals. Declan Rice has had one. Maybe there was a couple there was one earlier this season. Who was it against? City? We had a deflected goal against City, maybe 2. Yeah. I don't know, but we don't do that enough. You're right. There's something really important I want to say, right? And well, I think it's important. I'll let you 200 plus in live chat hug the like button. Don't kiss it today. Don't smash it. Just give it a hug. All right. And the Odegaard captain thing, stop that. It's just nonsense. Let's talk about Odegaard, the player, right? Because over the last 2 seasons, we've almost won the league. He's been a really good captain and a good leader. He doesn't have to go slapping people across the head. You saw what happened to Duran in Saudi Arabia for patting a player on the head today. Ronaldo going absolutely mental. But let's talk about the player. He's having a terrible season. He's not the creative force that we expect. That injury must have hurt him a lot more than we know. Probably rush back sooner because we've got nobody else. Even when Mikel had the opportunity to play Waneri, maybe roll that dice and give Odegaard more of a rest. Let's ask the question, why didn't he? Because Saka gets injured and now, he doesn't trust Sterling. There's a lot of these issues are brewed by the manager and his inability, like I said, to adapt, right? Odegaard has been poor, but I'm sorry, most of the team has been poor. These players have literally chosen to have the worst season collectively.
Yeah.
There is not one player that gets out of that game today with any kudos other than maybe Waneri at times. And here's the important thing that I want to say. And then I'll let you guys have your say and I'll put your comments up. We keep repeating history. Albert said it, cut and paste. I was so angry when Miles Lewis-Skelly was sent off. Not because it was he was given a red card. It was a red card. But what I was angry about, Albert, is that Arsenal Football Club are once again putting insurmountable pressure on the shoulders of teenagers. We have seen this before. We've seen it with Jack Wilshere. We saw it with Cesc Fabregas. We saw it with Emil Smith-Rowe. We've seen it with Saka. Not everyone is built as mentally strong as Saka. I do believe Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly are cut from the same cloth. But you are now relying on a 17 and an 18-year-old to save your season. And this is what makes me angry about the transfer window. This is what makes me angry about some of Mikel Arteta's choices as the season has progressed. This is what makes me angry with the executives who absolutely had an howler in the transfer window last summer and this January. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The owners do not pick this team. All right? I know many of you are angry at the owners, and a lot of you say, here she goes again, she's going to defend the Cronkies. It's not like they haven't given Mikel Arteta money to spend. You guys complain about the amount of money Mikel Arteta has had to spend. It's because they're not putting their hand in their own pocket and spending the kind of money you want. Those days in football are gone. Finito. They sanctioned a 100 million signing for Declan Rice. They didn't choose Calafiori or Mikel Merino in the summer. Mikel Arteta chose not to sign a striker in the summer. Now, maybe in January, they didn't want to fork out that kind of money for Ollie Watkins because they know that maybe they can get something cheaper in the summer, right? Maybe Mikel Arteta should have said, get me Ollie Watkins in the summer. So now we're relying on a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old to bail us out. And I find that unforgivable. Look what's happening to Miles Lewis-Skelly in the media. He's going to be taking the piss out of all weekend. All weekend. The Haaland memes have already gone up. The stay humble shit has already gone up. The Zen stuff is already there for everybody to see. And this is a player that we should be protecting. All right? Look what's happened to Sancho and Rashford. But this guy's really good and he works hard and he's been absolutely a beast in this team, Albert. Yeah. And it's evident today on Calafiori's performance that Miles Lewis-Skelly is above, head and shoulders above him as a footballer right now. If we're starting a final, if we ever got to one, tomorrow, Miles Lewis-Skelly might be my choice at left back. And now you want to put the world on Nwaneri's shoulders too. It is unforgivable that we're in this situation. And if we don't protect these two young boys, the media will ravage them. And they're already doing it to Miles Lewis-Skelly, right? And I find that the toughest pill to swallow today. Listen, should Miles Lewis-Skelly have started that game? Yes. If Calafiori stayed on, maybe Miles Lewis-Skelly could have come into midfield. Arteta's not to blame for the red card. He went in, he made a challenge. But if we don't protect these two young players, we're in trouble, Albert.
Yeah, we are. I mean, the reaction with Miles Lewis-Skelly quickly from the whole Holland celebration thing is unbelievable, to be honest. I'm surprised it carried on in the media for as long as it did. But I understand part of it, what I thought it really, really was about. But so if I go back to the Newcastle game, the second leg at St James's Park, people talk about St James's Park and the atmosphere, and you know, Arsenal lost the first leg 2-0. I was so angry after that game. I can take losing. I can accept that when we lose a game of football. But you are potentially 90 minutes away from a cup final, from a spot at Wembley. We don't have too many winners in this side. The fillet should have been there. And that performance, you cannot, with the exception of Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, who are just breaking into this team and starting their careers at Arsenal. The nucleus of this side have been together for 3-4 seasons. That performance against Newcastle away in the Carabao Cup was completely unacceptable in the second leg for how big that game of football was. I think my exact words to a couple of my guys that I talked to was, I wanted to see a performance that showed some bollocks and some courage. And we didn't get that night against St James's Park in the second leg. Fast forward today, as you mentioned. All I've heard a lot of Arsenal fans say is, and I agree with them, particularly with Ethan Nwaneri, He's the only bright spark I look forward to when I watch Arsenal, because I know I'm going to see something different. I know I'm going to see a player that's going to get me out of my seat. I know I see somebody going to do something off the cuff. Somebody's going to give the fans excitement, because we haven't had that this season. We're out of both domestic cup competitions. So what's the excuse for the performance today? Are we going to talk about injuries again? Of course you can talk about injuries. Tottenham can talk about injuries. Other clubs can talk about injuries. But we're Arsenal fans. And what we saw today was completely unacceptable. You know, I'm getting to the point now where you're watching games with Arsenal, and I've heard this conversation many people say, what have Arsenal got on the bench to bring on? Sophie, we've got nothing. We've got nothing to change the game. We've got nothing to get excited about. And we come back to the failings in the transfer windows. And Arsenal knew they had an issue in terms of injuries, with Erdegaard getting injured, coming back. We knew we lost Saka for a very, very long time. Mikel came out and said it a number of times in press conferences, and Declan Rice has come out and said it in terms of we need more reinforcements. We need more attacking threat. And I think I said it before. I said to Arsenal fans to be very, 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 very cautious in regards to January, because we've seen this story before. And Sophie, I'll go back to it again, and I've said it before. When we was going for top four, I think it's 3 seasons ago, and we bought no one. We bought in Austin Trusty and Matt Turner. We were going to go back out on loan. We bought no one, and that season we didn't get top 4, and that was under Mikel, by the way. So for the same thing to have been repeated after going for a league title 2 years in a row and going into the 3rd season where you knew it was going to be more difficult, it is absolutely a failure and neglectful for the club to tell me you cannot have found somebody in the whole of Europe, South America, on a permanent or on a loan to bring in a player to help this football club in the most pivotal part of the season. The hierarchy need to hang their head in shame. And I think I'm being polite by saying the word shame, because they needed help. And what really tipped a lot of Arsenal fans over the edges, some people want Watkins, some people don't want him. That's irrelevant, Sophie. It's the timing. It's the timing of the bid to go in and try and get a striker. And when you had Sammy Mockbell on here, when he mentioned that Arsenal went in for a pretty low offer, even in the minute he said that, in my head, I knew Arsenal probably went in about 15-20 million pounds short. And I always say this, there's one area of the pitch you have to pay over the odds. Whether they wanted to sanction it, don't want to sanction it, is irrelevant. There's one area of the pitch where Arsenal's neglected since Aubameyang left, and you didn't do it. And by the way, you're going for a guy who's Premier League proven. On top of that, as an Arsenal fan, whether you think that's an advantage or not, I don't know. So don't come out and say things like we've admired Watkins for a very, very long time. Of course, you're going to piss the Arsenal fans off. You've come in at the 12th hour. You haven't gone back in again. Villa have literally said, you know what? You pay the money, you can have him. Literally. So that's neglectful. So, and even today, so before I finish up, sorry. One of Arsenal's good things they've done in the last 2-3 seasons is you've built up a nucleus of a defense, which you even said it at times, Sophie, the Great Wall of Arsenal. Look at the first goal today. And this is a team that's supposed to have a defense that has got better. That's unacceptable. I said it to you in the chat. What the bloody hell is Gabriel doing? Why are you ducking? Why is
Calafiori got skinned by Wan-Bissaka all day?
Wan-Bissaka, who we know offensively, he's not the best fullback, and he's done our left back and got a crossing. That goal should not be happening from a defensive point of view. We can go out on the midfield and criticize attack and curse them and whatever, but defensively for that goal, completely ridiculous. Yeah.
And it's really weird how Declan Rice just plays really badly against West Ham at the Emirates. It's crazy. Imran just got through the door. To Imran, to Carol, to PW, to all the fans that made the journey today. I know Carol's got to get on a train and go long and far to get home, and on a cold winter night, it's not easy. I'm going to read out some more comments for us. This. Arteta hasn't cracked the low block code, Albert, not this season. And it is shocking to me. Look, I am not asking for the manager to be sacked, but at 15 million a year, I expect you to have some answers, mate, for the low block, as the kids today call it. Just how do you beat defensive teams? What's your answer? He has shown he has zero answer. You mentioned Newcastle, Albert. Same thing, right? He doesn't have an answer for these defensive teams. And they have cracked the code against us. And it's happening time and time again. And yet Mikel Arteta is unable to crack their code. And it's just absolutely shocking. And by the way, what's happened to Saliba?
Good Lord. I mean,
he was the Rio Ferdinand bringing the ball out the back and passing it. What is wrong? And quite a few of the squaddies have said, what has happened to the passing from the back? And it was refreshing. The one positive thing today was seeing Benjamin White back in an Arsenal kit.
That was the only thing.
That was the only thing. Because, and be careful what you wish for, and he's had his critics, but we know the relationship Benjamin and Bukayo had on that right side.
Mm-hmm.
And he does get forward. And he nearly scored an absolute banger. Maybe a little bit rusty. But that was one of the positives. But what has happened? You mentioned Gabriel in the first goal, who's, by the way, been our best player this season. I'm not going to kill Gabriel. Yeah. He got caught flat-footed, but he didn't jump. You know, he didn't jump. It was like Harry Maguire versus Doucouré earlier today. What he proved that white men can't jump, right? But Gabriel, he just didn't jump. And Declan Rice was like desperately tracking back, trying to reach Jared Bowen. We keep complaining about the forward line. We keep complaining about the striker, the creativity, pushing it too much from the flanks. But the defense has not been great. Those centre backs. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly's probably been the best defender. And Timber's been kind of getting away with it too, Albert. Fair or foul?
No, that's fair. He's from what I saw the early part of the season, that solid dependency has gone. He's for me, he's a little bit more irrational. Your position's a bit off, and so all it takes is that extra little 2-3%, and it shows in your performances. Because he hasn't been good. I think, what game was it we played? I think it was well, none of them were good, Sophie. But if you're talking about Timber specifically, I think it's Newcastle away in the second leg. He was awful at St James's Park. That's the worst game I've seen him play in an Arsenal shirt. He was all low. I know the defense, but if you're talking about him specifically, from what I've seen in the early part in terms of standards and the way he's played, he was awful. And that's for the low blocks thing, Sophie. And it goes back to what I said earlier. And I'm not no tactical expert. You guys, Arsenal fans in the chat box, when you watch it back. But if you watch, and I know they play a different style of football, but hear me out what I'm saying. If we're talking about wide forwards in the centre forward, go and watch Nottingham Forest play. Go and watch them play. Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, they've got movement. They've got, you have to, I don't care how you set up.
Morgan Gibbs-White's been very good this season too.
Yeah, I don't care how you set up tactically. You have to have pace that stretches wing backs or full backs or your centre backs. You have to have that. Arsenal do not have that, particularly because Saka's not playing. And that you mentioned the combination between him and Ben White and the triple combo with Ødegaard when he's on song. But Arsenal do not stretch teams. They don't. It's not. You don't have to go in depth. You can see it when you watch games of football. So if I went to as you know, I went to Tom Canton's thing event the other day, and it's great to hear from a player's perspective. Jeremy Aliadier was saying, like, when he watches Arsenal play, they don't stretch teams well enough. He said him as a centre forward, he would always make those runs. He would always give your attacking midfield players or your wide forwards an option. We don't have that at Arsenal, even with Havertz before the injury.
All right. Let me get some comments up. Someone wants us to call out Declan Rice. Did I not just say, why can't he play against West Ham at the Emirates? And also this 6 and 8 argument. A lot of people were talking about, making a sub, putting him in the position where he excels the most. Sometimes players are also set up to fail. And by the way, Neil, I've been behind the players all season.
We've been doing it, man.
We have been absolutely behind the players all season, especially seeing that they're exhausted. Okay. With that same token, where is this? You actually said it yourself, Neil. Why are we tired after Dubai? We had 10 days off during the FA Cup break. A lot of teams have played a lot of football while we were in the sunshine. It didn't work this season. It worked last season with a fully fit squad. And players, next man up. And I don't care what anyone says. Players like Reece Nelson, Emile Smith-Rowe. I don't want to say Fabio Vieira because I never rated Fabio Vieira. Yeah. But bodies. I wasn't a fan of Eddie Nketiah, but you guys keep talking about bodies. We're so snobby that we would rather have quality over quantity and bodies. Today, right, and it's not worth keeping Eddie Nketiah. He's on 100 grand a week. But he's not scoring goals at Palace. He did score a few goals for us, right? And I'm not saying he's the answer, but having bodies, adaptability, a player who can come on. I was watching an interview with Martin Odegaard and they were asking him what his favourite dressing room moment has ever been since he's been at Arsenal. And he said probably after the Bournemouth game. Reece Nelson scored that winner. Mm-hmm. When I was at the 3-2 Man United game in the same season, last minute, Eddie Nketiah scored the goal, scored the winner in that match. So everyone's tired. Liverpool have played a lot of games.
Yeah, they have.
Right? So you always used to hear it on this show. Super Kev would never allow the fatigue argument. He just wouldn't. But it is true. We're playing a lot of games. Players are getting tired. Football's more demanding. The monetization of the sport, the instant gratification. But it's down to you to prepare for that. It really is. And I've defended it for most of the season. But you defend when you have to call it as you see it, and you defend the players. But today, that performance is indefensible, guys. I'm sorry. It just is.
Yeah, particularly off the back of the result with Liverpool when they played Villa. I know people say Liverpool dropped points. I'm like, getting a point away to Villa is not. I mean, you can call that drop points, and if I understand why people would say that, because obviously it gives us a chance to plug the gap back. But unfortunately, we haven't done it. So if you look, we've got to me, we've got an even harder game on Wednesday, because I just mentioned the team that we spoke about, Nottingham Forest. Look at the way Bournemouth play. I mean, the way they went up to Newcastle a few weeks ago and absolutely annihilated them in their backyard. And they've probably got they've got injuries, by the way, back then. So
I'm not saying Reece Nelson, he's injured now. Yeah. I'm giving you examples, guys, that you can't have a Saka and a Waneri and a Saliba and a Gabriel as your bench. But you get close to quality, or you have players who can come on and affect the game. Look at Chris Wood. Is he a sexy signing?
No.
Most teams will turn their nose up at a player like him. Doesn't fit the bill. Isn't marketing. Stop being snobs. Sign players who can score goals. Adapt. And honestly, I get it. The injuries are what they are. But if you're a top-notch manager, you can't regress this much, because now we're on a slippery slope. I know someone said I can't see us winning another game, but a lot of people have been saying, I bet Man City finish above Arsenal. I bet this. Nottingham Forest, that game is so huge. And you're right, they're physical. They play with speed on through the middle and the flanks. They defend really well. Their units work in symphony. Like, they've been a really fun team to watch this season as well. And Chris Wood has been a revelation. We would never sign a player like that. Evan Ferguson, right? You could have signed him a body. Come on. If you're gonna play from the flanks and knock the ball into the penalty box, then why not have someone like an Evan Ferguson in the box for you? That way you can save Mikel Merino and play him in midfield, which is why you bought him. The square pegs, round holes experiment has to absolutely end, Albert. It's killing the players. And they're being asked to do things beyond the realm, right? It's easy for us. We're going to work. But when your boss asks you to do something different that isn't in your job spec, you're like, hold on a second. That's not part of my job spec. Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, the defending they had to do, the miles, the kilometers they run in a game, the physicality that is needed to play in this system and this team, it takes its toll on the players. But you also had a 10-day break, and you have to put in a better performance than that. I understand the players. I really do. But the Newcastle away, the League Cup games, even go back to early in the season, Bournemouth away. Come on, man.
Yeah. It's dreadful. Absolutely dreadful.
What do you want to leave the squaddies with? Because I feel like, it's a bad result. It's not been an enjoyable season. I've tried to G up the troops as much as I can and find the silver linings, creating good football conversations and content that don't have us focus on the minutiae of post-game and all that type of stuff, Albert. But today I'm tired. I'm really tired, because as a fan, you feel like you put in the effort, right? I put in the effort. Last weekend, I got up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm putting in the effort. And I just feel like I'm tired. I get up, I go to work. I know their physicality, can let them down. But put in the effort. Where was the effort today? Where was the passion, the pizzazz, any of it? Where was it? There's something missing from this team. I just don't believe it's about transfers. I don't believe it's about injuries only. They're not happy. I've said it many times this season. Something is off. When I said it to Tom Canton and I said, there's something that they're not happy about, and people have challenged me on that. There's no joy. This team is not playing with joy. We see them beat Man City 5-1. There's joy there, of course. But you can't just turn it on for one game and then switch off for the next. Albert.
Yeah, it touches on what you said before about Arsenal in regards to Mikel sort of being, I think the last 2 seasons and not getting over the line, I think you're seeing the full effects this season. It's as simple as that. You can, as you mentioned, I know people in chat talking about injuries, but let's be honest.
David Hillier said that, didn't he?
Yeah, let's be really, really honest as Arsenal fans, right? This is not, you can still criticize a manager and not be called toxic. You can still watch a game of football and go, you know what? This is crap. This is boring. This is rubbish. You're not wrong to say that, because you've seen it for the most part of this season. As we stand now, we're out of both domestic cup competitions. We're not going to a final in either of those. You're left with the Premier League, which we're now 8 points behind. And we're left, and we're going to put all our eggs into one basket for the Champions League, which we've never won before. So I'm just stating facts. If you think that's me being negative, then tough, because you still got quite a few games this season to go. So as I always like to say, chuck tactics out the window. You can talk about injuries till the cows come home. Watch what you're watching with your own set of eyes and tell me if you are, one, enjoying the football, or if you don't see there's something wrong. The football's poor. It's not great. And I think we've been scarred emotionally, and I think some of the players have been for the last 2 seasons not getting it over the line. I don't think I'm wrong to say that. I think it's evident this season because they've been given opportunities to make this title race closer, and they have not done it. This side, let's not beat about the bush here. We can talk about recruitment. The nucleus of this side have been playing together for 3/4 seasons now. You should not be getting performances you got at St James's Park in that second leg in the Carabao Cup. That you shouldn't be getting that. So yes, you can sit. There'll be sections of the fan base that still look, it's still not mathematically over. Don't tell me and state the obvious. I know that as an Arsenal fan. My 8-year-old nephew can tell you that. It's not mathematically over. But look at what you are seeing. There's so many fractions that are off or wrong, from the recruitment to the way your experienced players are playing in this side. We're not far away from March, and we're still talking about whether Declan Rice should play in a 6 or an 8. This is not a conversation we should be having on podcasts. We should know where he's playing.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be relying on 2 18-year-olds. We have not seen there's too many of these players. Trossard, 17 goals in all competitions last season. He's not even going to get anywhere near that this season. Even before the Martinelli injury. Yes, there was a little bit of a tiny bit of a resurgence, but if you actually look at his form since the season of the 15 goals, to me, his game hasn't improved. Yes, you can label that probably some Mikel and the not so much tactical tweaks, but I like Sophie, like you said it. I don't know how some of the Arsenal fans feel who are going to the games this season. Some of them are going to Forest on Wednesday, and you'll be positive and you'll enjoy it. The Midlands is quite a decent city to go to, by the way. I've been there. But I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm not enjoying what I've seen this season. Not just today, not just Brighton away, not just Newcastle United away. The only time I've actually enjoyed any element of Arsenal football this season is a couple of games in the Champions League.
Yeah, there's very mixed emotions in the chat. A lot of people are frustrated. A little bit. Everyone's handling it really well. I agree with Donna Potts. Thanks for joining us as well. I asked this question to a lot of our guests. Charles Watts. I talked to Albert about it as well.
Great question.
I said it. I've said something's off. Something is off with that. And I've had the opportunity to meet Edu a couple times and talk to him. He loved working for this club. You got that sense. And he talked to everybody. People can say what they want about other YouTubers. He was very inclusive, Edu. He wasn't afraid of anything or of anyone. He was building something, and he was very proud of what he was building. Something is off. And maybe one day we'll find out about that. Before we go real quick, I just wanted to put this comment up. Gastar, I started this earlier when I was talking about the teenagers. James said, the Cronkies didn't tell Mikel to buy Calafiori Marino, did they, Sophie? The cult of Arteta will deflect as they're Arteta fans, not Arsenal fans. That's the thing. That is something that I've been at early doors accused of not supporting him, all of the above. You know the history. Then I defend him, and it's like I'm an Arteta sexual. Then I defend the owners, and I'm a Yankee lover or whatever it is. I've been called it all. At the end of the day, I want what's best for Arsenal Football Club. And he has had the opportunity to sign players. And I don't want a book to come out in 10 years of Mikel Arteta telling us who we could have signed. If you could have signed those players, Wenger, you should have signed them. And I'm a huge respect for Arsene. But history kind of repeating itself. And a lot of people say, well, then, so what's the lowest common denominator? The owners. The owners were never going to put their hands in their pockets and invest in this club until they owned it fully. And since they have, you guys keep telling me they've invested almost 800 million. And so it's not them that chooses the players. And when you look at it, you got Saliba, you got Gabriel, you got Declan Rice, you got Thomas Partey, you got Odegaard. You got, Trossard.
Yeah.
They spent money on players big time when we weren't even in the Champions League with Aubameyang and Lacazette, and we're able to attract those players too. So, at some point, the manager does have to have some culpability as well, because you can bet your bottom dollar he wants to build this team his way. He's a very ambitious young man, and, he's done wonders changing the culture at Arsenal and bringing us to this point. But you can't regress. You've got to keep progressing. You have to take progress to progress and then success. And if he's not the closer, maybe he's not the closer. And someone keeps writing he's the Brendan Rodgers. Maybe he is. But this year in the Premier League, it's just not happening. Right, Albert, tell everyone where they can find you.
You people, you can find me, Albert JTV. I will be doing a morning show talking about, obviously, the game that happened today. I like my 9 a.m. slot on a Sunday because no one takes it, to be honest. So you'll see me up and early then. And Sophie, thank you for having me on again. And maybe you should apply for the role of the new sporting director.
I would love that role. I know now people are calling me saying the owners wanted this fraud. Yes, they're happy with him. They're sticking with him the same way they stuck with Sean McVay of the LA Rams, hoping eventually he's going to deliver. But you know what? They can be ruthless too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that after next season, if we're in the same boat, watch this space. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Try and do something fun with your day. I have no interest in watching Manchester City versus Liverpool now tomorrow. Zero. Chief Like Officer, thanks for keeping the troops in check. To all those traveling home from the game, please travel safe. To everyone who's contributed comments-wise, whether we agree or disagree in the chat, thank you so much. I love the respect that everyone has shown in the chat today, getting their comments across passionately the way they want. You all make really valid points, and we're going to continue this dialogue throughout the week. Maybe we'll do a phone-in show where you guys can come in and let me know what you think. Let me know in the YouTube comments if you'd like a phone-in show, and we'll just sit and talk, and everyone can have their voice heard as usual here on HS. Albert, love you, mate. Squaddies, don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. At ease, everyone, at ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
He's saying yes to the phone-in. We need therapy. Absolutely. We all need a little bit of therapy. Love you guys.
Get the phone in, Sophie.
Get the phone in going.